What's up, everybody? We are live and we are here to give away those t-shirts, talk about training. I've got some real good studies that we're going to go into where we're going to start to break down some of the comments and questions. One specifically I'm most excited for is actually based around training regarding soccer. So I can't wait to get into that. But let's do that t-shirt giveaway. First of all, at CEJ3940 from the speed video, you won yourself one of our sweet swole t-shirts. And then we got at John A Miles 18 off of the full video. And don't worry, your swole shirt will not be as wrinkled as this one is. I just found this in my office, so this is our sweet swole shirt. So CEJ3940 from the speed video, John A Miles 18 from full. Keith Canegard is commenting, oh my gosh, Dane is on time. That's crazy. So how to claim that prize, email us at support@garagestrength.com that you won the free t-shirt giveaway. Provide a screenshot of your YouTube studio using the same account that you used to enter the giveaway so that you can verify that you were the winner. All you've got to do too is you can sort of black out the revenue aspect, but it's CEJ3940 from the speed video, John A Miles 18 from the full video. You guys won the t-shirt giveaway. Keep commenting on those, on the full length videos that we're putting out so that you guys can enter to win those sweet swole t-shirts. So I'm going to take this off there. You can see, oh, I didn't even read there that John A Miles was saying he was going to try that split. And then CEJ3940, man, every single video that Dane puts out, he looks a little bit leaner. Thank you for that. I've been trying my best. I've been trying to get as lean as possible. Okay, so this first comment is going to be a comment around the Speed Freak video. Okay, so this is a great video. Thank you. What should my split be to become faster? And so what I wanted to do here is provide, I'm trying to highlight this. Whoops, of course. There we go. Okay. I wanted to provide this, although it's blocking me out. There we go. And basically, based off of Jack Savage 5378, this research paper basically goes into different types of training, and where you're going to see the best results as far as pulling a sled, as far as running with a band, as far as running downhill, as far as running 100 meters or even 150 to 200 meters, and then getting specifically, I'm going to try and move this a little bit. Let's move that over. There we go. That way I can have a little bit better seat. So if you follow this, if you read this research paper, effect of different sprint training methods on sprint performance over various distances, what you end up seeing is that all of these distances of training do transfer, but they transfer best, ironically, even when you're doing 100-meter sprints or 80-meter sprints, to about 25 to 32 meters. And what that means is also that a lot of locomotive-based training, so doing 100-meter sprints, 60-meter sprints, 60-meter hill sprints, training with a resistance sled, really where you're going to see the biggest improvement is on acceleration. And so to answer this question, okay, so to answer Jack Savage's question, what I would do would be, what should my split be to become faster? First of all, I want to put that down as an absolutely phenomenal video idea, as like breaking down, what would that split be, right? But then also saying, all right, let's go. Typically, if we're going to look at somebody like we're doing combine prep or we're training for 100 meters, we're going to do our hardest session of the week, usually when we're our freshest. Okay, so let's say the most volume, the most intensity probably is going to be the first session of the week, or we do a sprint session in the morning that's nice and easy, and then we do a very hard session in that same afternoon of day one that follows us up. So now we're basically doing 2 sessions in one day, that afternoon sessions where we're going to get after it. So that's one way to look at it, okay? The next big way that we can do is say, okay, let's do 2 sprint days in day one. Day 2 could be a leg power day. Day 3 could be some mechanic work. We're doing speed work, or we're doing drills. So we're going to do specific technique drills. The intensity is not going to be as high. And then that's where we focus on maybe that athlete day. Day 4, we take a rest. Day 5, because we're coming off that rest period, this is typically going to be the second hardest sprint session of the week. And then in that afternoon, you can do some type of impulse-based training. Day 6, you can do, something simple, maybe some dynamic trunk control work, maybe some ab work. And then that's that type of split that you could follow when you're trying to build out what that speed's going to look like. But this research paper right here is going to be absolutely fantastic. It breaks down distances. It breaks down different types of sprint-based work that you can do, pulling with sled, pulling a band, having overspeed training, and then sort of provides you with that nice knowledge around that. So I did want to provide that for you guys there so you can respond or check that out. Now, the next one. This was an interesting comment that I wanted to sort of just go through. Let me move this over here. So this is a question from Tribunal Dude. Okay, and this is on the shoulders video. Tribunal Dude said, as a strength coach, I wonder why you did not mention snatch grip pulls and muscle cleans on the shoulder video. And one, I wanted to point out, it's not that I would not do snatch grip pulls, and it's not that I wouldn't do muscle cleans for shoulders. But what I wanted to do was provide here, okay? So if I'm looking at this, and based off of what Tribunal Dude was saying, I wanted to look at one, the predictive validity of the snatch pull force velocity profile to determine snatch 1 rep maxes in males and females. Okay, so this video or this article right here, sorry, I did that wrong. This article right here does predict, it goes into if we do snatch pulls at 85%, snatch pulls at 95%, snatch pulls at 110%, snatch pulls at 120%. This was done by the German group over in Germany, where they were basically testing a lot of their very elite world-class weightlifters, and they were looking at, does a snatch pull predict what that 1 rep max is going to be? So I wanted to include that, but one of my responses to Tribunal Dude is that if we're looking directly at, let's say, shoulders, okay, and that's where this comment here came from, is that we were looking at deltoids, okay, medial, posterior delts, traps, rhomboids. That's basically what I'm going to be looking towards if I want to really, really build up the traps and build up the delts so that we have big shoulders. I do include the horse snatch pull in there, and I do include other things that I think do it a little bit better. So it's not that I don't think that snatch grip pulls don't work. It's not that I don't like muscle cleans, but as far as straight up shoulder hypertrophy, I don't think they're the absolute best, but I did still want to provide you with this content here so that you guys can check that out and then work on, if you are trying to increase your snatch or you're trying to increase that overall max outcome, you can play around with that. Now, I wanted to get into one of my favorite ones here, one of my favorite comments, and this is going to be quite a bit longer, okay? And this is, I don't know if you guys will be able to see this here. I'll try and make this as big as I can so you can see it. Okay, so this comment here, let me read this quick. This is from DJ UD3RU. DJ UD3RU. So basically what DJ says is, Dane, I have a slight disagreement with your approach to soccer-based training. You're a gym and a sports guy, but clearly not a soccer guy. That's okay. I have huge respect for what you're doing. Just my 2 cents. Basically goes in to say soccer players need to carry their bodies up and down a soccer field for 90 minutes. Strength training approaches for these athletes should probably be hypertrophic, and preferably during the off season with calisthenics in season. Many of your exercises will cause them to gain too much mass, which is weird because he says they should be hypertrophic. Just something to bring up. Most of which they don't need, but have to carry up and down a soccer field per 90 plus minutes. The blood has to pump more, reducing their cardiac capacity and endurance. What most don't realize is that true strength for longer throws or more powerful kicks all come down to technique. I don't disagree. Armed with this understanding, I'm sure you can enhance your soccer-specific programming. Okay, so armed with this understanding. Now, what I wanted to bring up to DJ was that based off of his response, he's saying, doing things like back squats wouldn't work, or that they wouldn't work, and they should. He said hypertrophic, but then said that hypertrophy based training doesn't work. Now, what I wanted to do was actually provide a research paper to back up why I was saying the things that I was saying inside of the video. And this paper here, okay, goes over comparative effects of in-season full back squat, resisted sprint training, and plyometric training on explosive performance in elite level 19-year-old soccer players. Okay, so elite level 19-year-old soccer players doing plyometrics, which I state in the soccer video, doing resisted base training, sprint training, and then back squat. And the ironic part here is that in conclusion, the present strength training methods used in this study seem to be effective to improve jumping and sprinting abilities, but change of direction might need other stimulus to achieve positive effects. And so one thing I wanted to point out here, let's see if we can get this in here, is that in the back squat group, so they tested the counter movement. They tested a 20-meter sprint. They tested a 50-meter sprint, change of direction, the zigzag test, which is great. And then substantial movements like likely to almost certainly in the counter movement, all these things, right? So they could see that in the squat group, between group analysis showed that improvements in the 10 to 20 meters and 30 to 50 meters were likely greater in the squat group than in the resistance sled group. Let me repeat that. The results of this study, comparative effects of in-season full back squat, resisted sprint training, and plyometric training actually shows that full back squat training had a greater impact on sprints of 10 to 20 and 30 to 50 meters. So if we're going to look at a sample size of elite soccer players and we want to actually improve elite soccer players, do this. So I just wanted to bring that up because we've got to look at the literature when we're trying to actually debate something. And then we can look at that literature and say, all right, this is what the research is showing us. Okay, we're looking at elite level soccer players. If they increase their back squat in season, they're actually getting faster than if they're just doing these other exercises. So we can focus on improving their back squat. We can still do plyometric work. We can still do resisted sled-based training, but we have to make sure that all those things work, that all the other things are in place. Now, when I'm stating this, by no means am I saying that there shouldn't be technical work. Every single sport athlete that I train, okay, that's outside the realm of weightlifting. I mean, and even weightlifting, it is all based off technique. Okay. I'm a throws coach. Everything's technique in throwing. Everything's technique in wrestling. Everything's technique in football. Okay. I'm training you to be the best athlete possible. And then the sport coach has to train you to make that technique better. Based off of the research that we just saw, sometimes just squatting can be better for speed and better for other things. And then it can elicit greater technical response because you're stronger and you can handle positions a little bit better. So we've just got to remember that. I wanted to bring that up. I thought that was a pretty good response there. And I think DJ, he left a great comment. So I did want to bring that up. And I hope those help you. But my main goal for this is that we can spend, you guys can figure out who's winning that swole shirt each week. We give you those two winners for the swole shirt. And then the following week, I just realized that I guess you don't really have to see my deodorant, huh? I just saw that. And then once we get past that, the swole shirt, we go into 3 of those comments. I try to handle those comments with some type of peer-reviewed article so that we can sort of break that down a little bit further, use that article to understand that lens of training, and then come back to the actual training mechanisms that we're going to be using to advance everybody. So I'm going to go up there and look at, let's see. Kevin, I think this is the question we talked about, the difference of muscular endurance and cardio as well. So that many get mixed up. Is that, Kevin, is that what you were referring to with the squat issue? Let me know. Such a studio. Yo, thanks, Russell. Jabari, I don't show the research on my video. Should I do that? You can do that, Jabari, if you'd like. I need to create more live streams to connect with my audience. For sure, you can do that as well. Also, so let's see here. I'm going to go back up. Does anybody have any questions about those specifically? Tiny Finch, if your team, in my case football, is practicing 4 days a week, is it worth it to adapt and lower the intensity of the days you're working out alone, or should you do some 2-a-days? I think it's possible to do 2-a-days, and so Tiny Finch, I'm assuming that you're in high school, possibly. Maybe you're going to train by yourself in the morning. You could do a morning session to just get in, loosen up, almost like you're doing mobility. And then after that morning session, you can go train with your friends or with your team, which then in turn is going to help you execute at a little bit higher speed. I actually like to do that even in this. I wanted to share this with you. Check out this Peak Performance Planner. And then I'll put my morning mobility down and what I'm going to be doing with my training for the day and what are my goals going to be. I'm writing that in here. And then when I get into the weight room, I'm more prepared on what I have to do. So that's what I would recommend as far as that stuff is concerned. Coach Ed, love your stuff. I've been tapping in for the last month. Thank you, Coach Ed. I appreciate that quite a bit. You've said long drivers should train like linemen. Why not more like throwers or javelin? I would say for sure like shot putters as well. But I look at somebody like a guard or a D tackle or a D end as training that way as well. Keist, Dane, you will rival Jeff Cavalier's most shredded coach. I don't know about that. I am trying to get leaner and get down to like 210 because I've been running quite a bit more, trying to get my mileage up to around 35 miles a week. This week, I might be able to hit that. I'm really enjoying the rugby program on the Peak Strength app. This is from Dom Morfitt. I'm really enjoying the rugby program. Thank you for all the content and knowledge. I'm learning loads. So Dom, we actually just filmed another rugby video. We just put one up, I want to say last week on Peak Strength's channel. And then the interesting part is we've got a bigger video coming out on the Garage Strength channel. So stay tuned to that. Let's see here. Tiny, I saw Tiny's comment again. Okay. Trying to scroll down. Okay. What are your top 3 books for learning about strength and conditioning? Ooh, and Uncle Fester comes in. Muhammad Tyson, how stupid to say athletes need to play their sport rather than lift weights to a strength coach. Well, I think that just depends. See any good puts this weekend, Coach? Rack 979. This past weekend was probably the biggest weekend in the history of combined men's and women's shot put. Ryan Krauser broke the world record in the men's shot in one of the biggest comps of all time. And then the women's shot, an absolutely probably the deepest women's competition of all time, also occurred at the same venue. So there were some really, really big ones. Uncle Fester, why do sprinters have jacked upper bodies, but distance runners have little to no muscle on their upper bodies? I think about it this way. Sprinters still need to be able to have a large amount of mass to handle any type of intense training that they're doing in their legs. I also think genetically they are more talented as far as like they could do 4 to 5 sets of resistance-based training in their upper body and they'll still be hypertrophic. Also, if they're doing these heavy back squats or even to a point single leg squats or something, they still will gain mass in that upper body. My top 3 books for learning about strength and conditioning, I'm looking over at my books right now. I would say right now, Bill Pearl's Keys to the Inner Universe is probably one of my favorites. Another one I would throw out there would be Huge and Freaky, which is another wild bodybuilding book. Let's see. I have so many over there. Neuromechanics of Human Movement from Roger Inoka. Dude, I really like bodybuilding books. I've always felt that they give me the best. There's another weightlifting book from a guy named Vorobiev that I use quite a bit. Points of Flexion's another one. I think some of the more like power specific or athlete specific books just get like a little caught in the weeds. Poliquin's Principles is also a phenomenal one. Target Bodybuilding, another great one. There's a couple that I really try to avoid that everybody's always like, oh, why not this book? But yeah, that would be my answer. I know that's a couple different ones. Do I need to go ass to grass for squat, even if I'll never be that close to the ground as a football player? So this is for Ren G. So Ren, think about as a football player, the more you can lower your hips and lower that center of mass, the more you can get a steeper shin angle and project yourself forward. So if you're coming out of a 3-point stance you're coming out of a cut, if you're cutting hard from an agility perspective, or you're even making contact with an opponent to make a very, very strong hit on an individual, one, your trunk has to be extraordinarily stout, right? So we've got to have that dynamic trunk control. And if we are seeing that our shin angle is changing direction and we're projecting ourselves forward, that's how you're going to hit somebody harder. Also, as we just saw with the sprinter example, or the soccer example where people were increasing their back squat and they actually transferred better over to sprints. If they're doing a full back squat, well, if you look at the transfer, you would say, well, that back squat doesn't really look like a sprint, but you still see a transfer. So for Ren G's question, I would say you can squat ass to grass. I think sometimes you don't have to squat ass to grass. I think sometimes you could just do single leg squats or step ups, but you should be going back and forth between them. Let me know what you think about that, Ren G. James, is it realistic for an athlete to get stronger in lifts like cleans and squats and faster at the same time when doing the speed split? Geez. Absolutely. Is it bad to have lower body days followed by a hard sprint day? I think, again, set up so that the sprint days, the two hardest sprint days are the days that you're fresh. So day 1 and probably a day 5 if you're coming off of a day 4 rest period. Those are when you should have your two hardest sprint sessions, and you are coming off of a recovered period. Okay, so I would recommend doing that. Also, I believe clean single leg squats, back squats will lead to an improvement in your speed output. If we look at coming out of the blocks, if we look at breaking that series down, one, coming out of the blocks, you need to have a large amount of overcoming strength. So we need to be explosive. We need to be strong. The first couple steps need to be extremely fast. And that's where back squats, single leg squats, and that's where the power clean comes into play. So it's not going to slow you down. I've always wondered that. Why do people think, and maybe you guys could comment in here, why do coaches sort of put off that thought process that if we get stronger, we get slower? I've always wondered why that's the case. Now, if all we were doing is back squatting and deadlifting, like eventually you will get slower. You'll get better at deadlifting and back squatting. But I've always wondered, like, if we're still doing plyometric work and we're still sprinting and we're still doing reflexive work, why would we get slower? I guess I always wonder that. So if you guys could comment, help me answer that question. Okay, James Jabari, are these some good maxes for 13-year-old weighing 125, 225 back squat, 255 deadlift, 145 bench press? For sure. Any 13-year-old, training, those are great. I would replace deadlifts with cleans and learn how to clean very effectively, and some of those other movements are going to grow even more. I've spent more than 5 months without being able to do any plyometrics, thinking that I had patellar tendonitis. And I had an untreated patellar fissure and enduring all the pain. And so he's saying, or she's saying, I just hit my head on my mic, that they had almost like a stress fracture in the patella. And I believe that's the statement here. And so what needs to be happening is a lot of doctors are reluctant to use things like bone scans. They'll take x-rays, and x-rays don't give us as good of imaging as bone scans can. So if you do have that acute knee pain, or if even another common one for wrestlers and for throwers is actually pars fractures, and they won't show up on an MRI. They won't show up on a x-ray either, but they will show up on a bone scan. So it's important that we have all of those things used. What do you think of the warm-up program FIFA 11? I don't know FIFA 11. I remember Joe DeFranco did like an 11 something, and I always thought it was a great warm-up. Absolutely fantastic warm-up. What are the different benefits of doing 2 clean, 2 jerk versus 2 clean and jerks? I'm not a big fan of doing 2 jerks in a row unless we're coming off of boxes. I do not like lowering heavier weight and getting it back down. I don't think that's great. What's your thoughts about, all right, I'm going to scroll down here now. How long should a plyometric session be to maximize performance? Okay, so this is a great question from Uncle Fester. Some of the big factors behind explosive-based training. Remember that I think the best rest period is typically going to be about 1.5 to 2 minutes. I also think it usually takes about 12 to 20 minutes to really get the nervous system fully awake and able to handle the amount of intensity that you're going to be doing. So I like to use 3 to 5 sets for a good warm-up, and that warm-up should be in an unstable surface. The second pairing of exercises, okay, so this would be basically 1A and 1B. So after we do the warm-up, okay, that's when I like to see something that's a unilateral movement that's not overly challenging and a bilateral movement that's not overly challenging. That's prepping the nervous system even more to wake up, be ready, handle the intensity. And then after that, we get into a more intense plyo series. So that's where like 2A, 2B should probably be the most intense plyometric exercises that you're going to do, a unilateral one and a bilateral one. And so at that point, now we're looking at about 35 to 40 minutes in when we're done 5 to 6 sets of the hardest exercises. And then we would go on the back end. We will do another easier unilateral, bilateral that could take another 10 to 12 minutes. Typically, what I recommend for maximizing performance is that we would look at a plyometric session as taking about 45 to 60 minutes, depending upon the individual, the size of the individual, their skill ability, and how well that they recover personally. Elliot Fenton, what's the best split for a rugby player to get more power and speed? And so, Elliot, if you heard me talking about earlier, a couple people were talking about the rugby split inside of peak strength and how much that they really, really like the rugby aspect inside of peak strength. I would follow that split. It's an upper body, or it's a lower power, upper power athlete day, impulse, hypertrophy day. You can sort of get rid of one of them, but Elliot, I would go into peakstrength.app. I'd download that and then try that out, and it'll spoon feed you exactly what you should be doing. What is the way to be a qualified strength and conditioning coach? One, be really good at coaching athletes. Be good and have a basic understanding of anatomy and physiology. Make sure that you're really good with people, or as good as you can be. And I think that that's the start. Thanks for the answer, because I've been told both ways and I didn't know which to as a running back. Helps a lot. That's good. Emmanuel, does doing long time under tension workouts build slow twitch muscle fibers? As a wide receiver, I usually try to lift the weight as fast as possible to improve explosivity. Emmanuel, I would say do both. You will get more explosive doing fast movements. 100% that's going to happen. But you will also get a large amount of return from doing slower eccentric movements with a fast concentric, and that's going to help you cut a little bit faster. Think about long jumpers. They'll benefit from some slow eccentric work. So I think it goes a little bit of both ways. Speaking of that, I have a very deep squat. Sean Sheeper, thank you. Boom. Coming in with my weekly silky question. When I do overhead presses, and thank you for this super chat. You guys can enter that super chat, put in whatever dollar amount you want. I'm extraordinarily grateful for super chats. And if you guys want, Sean is also a channel member. You can join our channel membership on this link here or on the link below. And it's every single Friday we do that private live where I will answer everything. When I do overhead presses, front of chest, extend, eccentric behind the head, back and forth. Ooh. Okay, so you're doing like a Bradford press. I would say so you're getting sore where the medial delt is. And what I would argue is that you're here, okay, so you're pressing, and here it gets lengthened more. The mid delt, or I think the proper, I forget the anatomical medial delt. I'm not even sure if that's actually, or maybe it's the posterior side versus rear delt. I forget. There's like a little nuance in that discussion. But my answer to this question from Sean is he's saying that when he's doing something like a Bradford press, he tends to be a bit more sore in the mid portion of his delt. And the reason that I would say this is that as you come behind here, okay, and you're doing an eccentric, it will put a bit more load on the back side of the Bradford press. You're getting a deeper range of motion. Your upper back has to really start to wake up and provide that support through the eccentric, and then you come back up and press. But most of that soreness is probably happening from that eccentric portion behind the head and the fact that your elbows are getting underneath the bar a little bit more effectively. A lot of people try to lower where the elbows, I'll demonstrate like this, where the elbows will be back and it almost like they'll like hit their head on a Bradford press. But what ends up happening is they have to do that movement more effectively. And I think that that's the biggest thing. It's funny because this, people had asked about, I'm looking at the books again. My favorite books are in training are all, they're going back to bodybuilding. Okay. And bodybuilders have always seen crazy development from a Bradford press, partially because of this. To answer your question, Sean, is that there's a little bit better targeting of the medial delt behind the neck. Now we've got to make sure that we're mobile. We got to make sure that we can handle those positions because some people could have some shoulder impingements from that position. So we've just got to be aware of that, but we also have to know the value of the Bradford press. So let me know if that helps with that question specifically, Sean. If you do mobility days, you shouldn't be stiff for sure. When I get out of the blocks, it only takes me around 1.5 seconds to get to the number in lane 1. That's good. Okay, let's scroll down here. Is it beneficial to train any plyos in sprints during season if we have 3-hour practices but no conditioning? When should I do them? So what I would do, and I don't know what sport this is, James, I would try to figure out, can you do a plyo day on the weekend? Can you do plyos for 20 minutes or sprints for 20 to 30 minutes before you get into the weight room, let's say on a Sunday or on a Monday? That's when I would do it. Make sure that you've got 2 to 3 days recovery before you get into that competitive situation. So if we have a comp on a Wednesday or a Thursday, try to get some work done on a Sunday or Monday. That would be my answer. Ryan Hughes, my child who is a 9th grader is benching 340. What? Squatting 460, cleaning 265. What's recommended next for speed and agility? So Ryan, 1, that's phenomenal. How big is your child? Are they squatting ass to grass? That's huge. That's a huge bench press in 9th grade. Cleaning 265. You could probably push that a little bit. This is crazy. Nicholas did clean 300 pounds when he was in 8th grade. So for speed and agility, I would push the cleans a little bit more. Get him to do, or your child to get them to do a bit more front squatting. See if that helps. Frederick W on sport coaches restriction in work in the gym could be to not trusting the program. Adaptation to the less able group of coaches. Yeah, I agree with that. A lot of coaches don't trust strength and conditioning coaches. How many different rep ranges would you recommend for squats in a given week? 2. Usually 2. And usually my Fridays and Sundays look very similar. Do you have tips for fast healing for patellar tendonitis or just healing in general? Try to avoid anything that's painful. I actually would recommend ice there and avoid anything that's painful. Why am I doing so many variations of split squats in peak strength? First single leg squats, next dumbbell split squats, and then overhead plate split squats. Keith, so some of those are going to be warm-ups, right? Some of them will be targeted for absolute strength. And then that last one would be an accessory. I don't believe that would be in one workout. Can you, if you get that, take a screenshot and send that into, let me write that down. Send that into us for customer service and we'll get it fixed. But if that's one workout, let me know. What are the exams do I need to do to be, I would get the CS is probably the easiest one. If I'm running a combine at a college camp, how should I prep or alter training as I come up to that point? I think the biggest thing is recognize that most training for combine prep should be, you're laying that out for like a 12-week time frame. We actually have a product that we're selling called Combine Camp. And this sort of lays out that 10 to 12 week prep period. And then it guides you through those last 2 weeks on how you can lead into a peak. And I think that's another big factor here is that even inside peak strength, if we're setting you up for football and you set that peak date, we would establish that. Keist, take some screenshots and send that in to us, and we can get that figured out. If you don't mind doing that, that'd be a huge, much appreciated. Yeah, I'm trying to go back here. Jabari's fitness channel is okay. Ryan, absolutely impressive, 100%, very strong. We need to make sure he's extremely explosive as well. If we're doing a 5-day training split, what days do you think we should sprint? Man, this is like the 4th time we've answered this question. Let's go over split for speed training. I feel like this is a full-length video that we should be using. Split for speed training. Let's do that. And again, I think day 1 and typically day 4 would be the hardest days, both of which coming off a recovery day. That's what I would recommend. Is 5x5 best for training? I don't think it's the best. I think it's very, very good, though. Sean, if you're having pain overhead, you may have a T2 through 4 compression in the rib cage. I'll recommend looking into PRI to look for some breathing exercises. It's helped me a lot. So this is from Sean. So that's interesting because I didn't think about Sean. So this is for Kevin. Let me go back and see. Did I miss something from Sean? Yeah, I guess Sean or Kevin, I was interpreting Sean's question more so like he just gets sore there, not that he's got discomfort there. But I guess Sean or you could clarify that. Aid it. For a professional sportsman, a cricketer, what do you advise for a weekly split breakdown for lifting, sprinting, plyo during the off season? So during the off season, if you guys watched the full video where we went into it a little bit deeper, I would say a Lulu split where you go lower, upper. But in the middle there, okay, so you go lower on day 1, upper on day 2, athlete day 3, take a day off, day 5. So this would be day 5 of the week. So a Friday would then be a lower body. Day 6 would then be upper body. That's one of my favorite splits. If we're doing 6 days, I'd add in a hypertrophy day. So that's how I would set that up. James, what goals should a freshman running back try to get their lifts, and then from that, should they make any changes? How would one go about those numbers as fast as possible? Make sure, okay, if you're a freshman running back, we've got to make sure how many days a week are you going to be committing to getting in the weight room? Are you getting in the weight room 3 days a week or 4 days a week or 5 days a week? Commit to at least 4 days a week. Okay, so 4 days a week getting in the weight room. Then where do you stink as far as lifting is concerned? Is your clean weak? Is your back squat weak? Anything along those lines? What is weak for you as an individual? Train that a little bit more. If we need to train for speed, more single leg squats, more single leg plyos. Okay, and that's how I would set that up. Trace Thompson, running a 4-day off-season split for freestyle right now, wanting to put in 2 sessions of hill runs, 10 to 15 reps each time to build up cardio. How would you slot those in? So this is for freestyle, I'm assuming wrestling. What I would do, Trace, is I would say day 1, let's do hill sprints. Day 1 would be a lower body power day, but nothing crazy. Day 2 would be upper body. Day 3 would be take a break. Day 4 in the morning, I would go run hills again. Day 4 in the afternoon, I would do impulse work. Day 5, I would do hypertrophy work. Sean, boom. Thank you again for that $5 super chat. Again, thanks, guys. These super chats mean a ton to us. They help us out quite a bit. Do you think coaches and trainers without a college degree can train as well as those that do? I can get discomfort after sometimes. So are you saying, Sean, that sometimes when you, I guess, what are you saying? You're asking if somebody who doesn't have a college degree, are they able to train somebody better than the individual who does have a college degree? I would say yes, they're capable of doing that. I would also say it really would depend on the situation. And there's going to be some people that have college degrees that can coach better. I think it just depends. Are you saying that sometimes you get discomfort from a non-college degree coach? I guess that would be my next question. Advice or a video on throwers transitioning from high school to college shots and discs. Jason, did we film a video on transitioning to the college throws already and we just didn't post it yet? Like the 12-pounder to the 16. Okay, so we have not filmed that, but that's a really, I thought we had filmed it. Oh, man, I thought we had filmed that. So this is going back. This is Zeba Cake. That's a great video. And I thought we filmed it, but I guess we have not filmed it. We're going to do it because that's great. That's a great one. I think a lot of people would benefit from that. Aitor Gallego Bereziartua. How should an athlete's summer grind be for strength? Should you be doing a summit phase and all those things, or should we just plan it? Or how should we plan it? So what I would do, Aitor, is I would plan a full summer, but I would go, right now, May, this is when I would do exposure phase, June, comprehension, July, ascension, August, summit phase. And it depends on if you're playing a sport in the fall. If you're, the summit phase, you might have a little bit cut into that. So then you could shorten the exposure phase if you want. Typically, okay, so now Kevin's coming in here and he's saying, I think he's talking about his shoulders. Do you think coaches and trainers without a college degree can train as well as those that do? I can get discomfort. Okay, so he gets sore in his shoulders, but it's nothing terrible. Okay, so there are two different comments there. Going back to Aitor, I think you should be pushing volume in the beginning of the summer, and you should be going heavy like the last 6 to 8 weeks of summertime. I do believe that you can do that. Uncle Fester's coming in, and he's saying he's a cross-country runner. He wants to gain some upper body mass. Will it slow him down, or is it even beneficial? So I would argue you're doing enough running, and you should be, no problem, solidarity. I think you should be able to, if you're doing calisthenics, let's say push-ups, dips, pull-ups, rope climbs, I think you would be okay doing that as a cross-country runner, and you wouldn't add too much mass. I think you would be okay. I was just thinking that, so somebody just commented, Relaxty just said, how much is your bench press? And I think we should do a competition where we take a vote. Whoever's closest to Dane's bench press predicted bench press wins a free Swole shirt. So maybe we could take that and I'll go max this week. Right now, I have no idea. I think I could get close to 405, but I'm not really sure. How to improve VO2 max while training for strength without a lot of CNS fatigue. The quickest way that I would say is once a week, doing, let's say you go on an assault bike and you hold about 57 RPMs for like 45 minutes. And then once a week you get on the assault bike and you do 2 sets of 5-minute tests or 3 sets of 5-minute tests. How far can you go? That's what I would say. Okay. So Keith just posted the workout today on Discord under app screenshots. Thank you so much, Keith. I am going to make that a point. Screenshots. I'm going to make that a point, and we're going to check that out. Okay, so Sean comes in. Boom, another $5 super chat. Thank you so much. So Sean is saying he's got discomfort in the medial delt insertion point after overhead presses. So what I would do is that before you get into the Bradford press, what you were describing as a Bradford press, okay, I would make sure you're doing like a prayer stretch, another lat stretch, maybe even like a sweeps of the upper body. Do 3 to 4 rounds of that. Do band pull aparts. And I would even do a band pull apart like this. Band pull apart here, hold it overhead, and then pull here. Okay, so make sure you're doing like 3 rounds of that, and then you're also doing those sweeps and prayer stretch, lat stretch, and then do those presses and see if you feel better in the medial delt. See if that feels a little bit better. I'm willing to bet that might feel a little bit better because you're just going to be a little bit more mobile and a little bit more awake in that upper back, and you're probably going to execute a little bit better. So let me know what you think about that. Marcus Cram just predicted that Dane's bench press is 385. That might be accurate, maybe not. Fried Rice Boy. After the exposure and comprehension phase, would you completely stop doing movements like the back squat or bench in exchange for sport-specific movements? I would not completely stop them. What ends up happening is that once you get into ascension and summit phase, you end up doing things maybe a little bit more specific, or you're doing something like an unbroken back squat or an unbroken front squat, and that's going to lead to some transfer of power output. So not entirely. Marcus Cram comes in. What do you recommend for a soccer player in season? I would say twice a week resistance-based training, but one of those sessions can be all calisthenic-based movements like single leg squats, walking lunges, pull-ups, push-ups, dips, things like that. I think that's where you can be doing and a lot of ab work in season. And then one of those other days, you can still do a traditional resistance-based training. That would be for Marcus, his question about in-season soccer. Did you get to check out, Marcus? Did you get to watch our soccer video that we put out about 3 weeks ago? Let me know what you thought about that and what you think we could do in the future. Kingsley, hey, Dane, greetings from Spain. I find your channel so helpful. Please, how can I improve my snatch? Kingsley, first thing you got to do is identify where is your snatch weakness. Is it in the overhead position, your catch, your pull above the knee, your pull from below the knee, floor to knee? Identify where those problem areas are. Then the next step would be snatch more frequently with cues around those problem areas. Then the next step is identify a variation that can help fix those problems. So if we have a snatch catch is a problem, snatch balance can be something that we use. Above the knee, we can use two boxes or high hangs. Below the knee, we can use low hangs or pulls off the floor. With the pull, snatch pull to a target. Okay, that's how I would roll with that. Let me know if that helps. It's a pretty quick rundown of what you guys can be doing there to fix your snatch. All right, locks. Will plyos on a rest day impact fatigue much for a restless weightlifter? Yes, it can impact fatigue for a restless weightlifter, for sure. I think you would notice a lot if you just took that day off, depending on how many days a week you're training. How do you feel about doing agility before upper body days with team conditioning after those upper body days? How do you feel about doing agility before upper body days with the team conditioning after those upper body days? I would try to nix one of those. I would just do agility and upper body, or I would do upper body and then get into the conditioning. That's how I would set that up. David Diaz, how much creatine do you recommend for the loading phase? So I would argue you don't have to load. Okay, you don't have to load. If you took 10 grams a day or 0.1 grams per kilogram of body weight, you really don't need to load. I will say that, okay? But with that being said, typically people would say 20 grams is a safe bet for 4 days. I don't think you need to do it though. Okay, AV1, I injured my lower back. What should I do for rehab? Reverse hyper, hanging leg extension, hanging leg raises, some type of hollow rock can help as well. And then just doing something like a chair stretch is very effective. Are single leg squats with dumbbells still as effective as with a barbell? They're effective. They're not as effective. I don't believe they're as effective because I think with a barbell, it's a little bit, the load can be heavier and you can get a better response from the body. Any tips on upper body explosiveness to help increase the lacrosse shot? Side med ball throws, some reflexive rotational movements, side shot throws with the ball. With that, I think that's all, even doing some rotational trunk work can help quite a bit. What would you recommend for a football player in season? Typically, what that would look like is one day we're going to still train as normal as possible. And then a Monday, we'll try to get about half intensity and half volume as a normal off-season workout. If we have a soft opponent on a Friday, Wednesday, we'll do a little bit of an athlete day. That's about 15 minutes. As a wide receiver, I usually train all my lifts to failure and mainly focus on being explosive. So wait, you mainly focus on being explosive, but you train them to failure. I don't know if that's possible, but I often need long rest times before my next session. You do not need to train to failure at all. Okay, you could just train one set per workout to failure and still get 5 other working sets in the same exercise, and you'll be better off that way. So don't always train to failure. Can an athlete be explosive on a low carb diet, no more than 100 grams? Ooh, I bet possibly, but dude, a lot of people that go low carb, they feel flaccid and flat. They have no pop. They have no energy. Keist, yes, we've got an update coming up in July. And yes, there's going to be more bonuses in there. There's going to be more warm-ups. There's going to be more exercises in general. Josie and Bagels. I got very weak after a video game addiction for 2 years. I'm starting football. Is there any tips to get my strength back? Lift 4 days a week. Hold yourself accountable to squat more than, try and squat twice a week. Do 50 clap push-ups every single night. 100 straight V-ups. Let me know if that helps. Blackjack. What's up, Freeze? How are you doing? Thanks for that $1.99 super chat. Boom. Oh, Sean Shepard again. $20 super chat. Is there anywhere to donate for any kids that train with you that can't afford to train? We have, Sean, we have something called Garage Strength Athletics. And so Garage Strength Athletics is a nonprofit that we take as you could submit a donation to Garage Strength Athletics. And if you email support@garagestrength.com, you can actually email support@garagestrength.com. We'll respond with the proper links. And if you need a receipt for taxes or anything, or you don't care, whatever it is, but usually what we do is we identify anywhere from 2 to a handful of athletes. Last year we actually helped about 20 football players that were coming in the summertime. We covered half of their tuition, and then their school district covered the other half of their tuition so that they could come in and train with us. So we do things like along those lines. So I'm elated that you're asking about that, but that is how we set that up. And eventually I would love to have something like that inside of the app for everybody to offer that if they would want to. Let me know if that answers your question. Again, support@garagestrength.com, and just put in the subject line like donation to GSA, and then ask what that link would be. Alan, in-season rugby forwards, should lifts be around 80% of max or less? I think that one lift you could do around 80% max, and then one of those lifts later on in the week, you could go a little bit lighter. Yep. You can email us about at support@garagestrength.com. Some exercise for hammer throws in the off season, plate twists, throwing heavier hammers, front squatting, back squatting, close grip snatch. Basketball workouts at home, single leg squats, jump lunges, jump step ups, bounds, rim touches. Let's see here. I wanted to go back up here because I saw Marcus Cram really enjoyed the soccer video. Pumped you made one. I'm glad you liked that. I think we're going to have more even coming out on peak strength issue. We go into the increasing turning speed of the hammer, throw more, work on that footwork, do some drills. What would you recommend for a baseball player off season? So that's interesting. Baseball player off season is going to be shoulder external rotation. Focus on bat speed. We did have a whole discussion around bat speed and trying to think about using the knob quite a bit more. So working on that specific strength work there, I think that's a big factor. I just did a research paper. I reacted to a research paper on increasing hitting speed for tennis players. And so tennis players that did internal rotation or shoulder flexion isometrically for 2 sets of 10 seconds saw a greater power output from their service. And I think that's where baseball players could learn and increase. So that would mean even to a point doing pull-ups, doing a large amount of miracle grows, doing the shoulder dumbbell shoulder external rotation, things along those lines. That's going to help a baseball player quite a bit. Med ball throws, and then doing single leg work, power cleans, single leg squats, pistol squats, skater squats, power snatches. The biggest thing I would recommend right there, okay? I just gave you a lot of different exercises. There wasn't much of a plan. If you go into peak strength, and when you're inside of the app peak strength, you can actually download peak strength and then put in there that you are a baseball player and you want to train for baseball. And so I think that's probably the best recommendation that I can make you, is that use the app and try it for a week and see what you think, and then build from there. I think, Bodie, that would be the best way to answer that baseball off season. What if you would time your carbs before high intensity workouts and run on fats the rest of the time? That's not really how the body works. Unless, Muhammad, you're talking about less than 100 grams of carbs. You're saying let's take like 80 grams of carbs right before a workout, and then the rest of the time you don't have carbs. I still think you're going to feel like crap. What's the goal, right? Like what's the whole point? Because I would argue, going back to this, if you're trying to get leaner, you just have to decrease calories. It's all about calories in, calories out. And if we know what that total daily energy expenditure is, you can still eat a large amount of carbs and lose weight. I eat a lot of carbs and I've been losing weight, but I also make sure that my caloric intake is less than my caloric output. That would be my answer there. What workout should I do to be able to do a pull-up. I think we might have done a pull-up video. But the big thing around pull-ups is executing, actually, ironically, related to the baseball players. Shoulder external rotation is going to be big, okay? Lat strength, doing like heavier one-arm rows with a garage grip, doing chest rows, reclining rows, changing the angle of the bar when you're doing reclining rows, so like a seated reclining row with your feet elevated. All of those things will pay off. Start with a neutral or a chin-up grip, lat pulls with those grips. Those are all great exercises. Okay, so how should I train my upper body as a soccer player without making me slower? Pull-ups, clap push-ups, dumbbell benches, miracle grows. That's all you need for a soccer player for your upper body. I just heard that Coach Bunderchuk had shot throws do beneath the legs and calculate their maximum throw. Is that true? And what's the relationship between those and full throw distance? Like forward or backwards? I'm a little confused by that. Should my deadlift form be perfect before I start doing power cleans? Still learning to use my glutes more in the deadlift. So Mike Nolan, what I would say is, I believe your glutes will fire better by learning the clean technique faster and by doing more reps with the clean technique. And then before you actually are doing the cleans, think about squeezing like a nickel in between your butt cheeks. Think about, even sitting here right now, I'm thinking about rotating out. Think about doing like a single leg glute bridge or a bilateral glute bridge, and do those before you would go out and do your cleans. I think that's going to help quite a bit. Deadlift form is different. The deadlift form is going to be different from a power clean technique. That would be my argument. What's a split for a basketball player? So that's from Josh Babs. Josh, I don't know if you got to watch our basketball video. I think it was 10 or 11 exercises to develop basketball power output and performance. But I would recommend a pull-up video. There we go. Thanks, Jason. I would recommend, as far as a basketball split, a lower body power, an upper body power, and an athlete day. Maybe an impulse day, but really those three. Don't let perfection be the enemy of good, for Mike Nolan. And that's a quote from Solidarity. Great quote, Solidarity. I love it. Thank you for commenting on that. What specific technical aspects or cuts on the field should running backs focus on to be great? I think like 15-degree cuts. So like, let's say we put a cone here and we start here and we sprint and we figure out where are we going to be cutting. And I'll show you here, and then here. Okay. So I would want to do something like that. That's real simple here. Okay. So run quickly, cut, and focus on the leg placement, the foot placement. Something else I would do, like a little drill, if you're out on the field and you're working on taking a pitch. Okay. So you take a pitch here and you have a hard cut from the right side. Okay, coming up, and then you have a theoretical defender here that you cut inside, plant, and you cut with that left, and I'm going to show you this here. You cut here, then there's another theoretical defender that you have to get the edge on and take it to the house, okay? So little series like that. I think like those simple series of training there, I hope you can see that, doing that to both sides, and even doing it within like a 10-yard box. I like setting up 10-yard boxes with like, you have to avoid a linebacker right at the line. You have to cut to the left and then come forward and then cut immediate to the right and then break it upfield. Real compound positions like that is what's going to lead to some really, really good cutting ability. And you've got to think about cutting inside the box. I think that's one factor that a lot of coaches get away with, they avoid, is that they're not doing agility-based work inside the box, inside the 5 to 10 yards. How should I strength train for wrestling over the summer? This is from Snakeboy. We just posted a sweet ultimate guide to wrestling video that literally lays out everything from how many days a week you should be lifting, what you need to be focusing on, what your nutrition should be. So check out that wrestling video. But ideally, it would be 2 really heavy days. You would do 2 more explosive days and 1 or 2 days of endurance-based training, and make sure you're dialing in your nutrition in the off-season. Fried Rice Boy, can you tell how far a thrower can possibly throw based on taking a shot and throwing a shot from in between the legs and throwing it backwards? Oh, Yeah. You can do that to a point, but some people are really bad at that because they have short arms and they're still good throwers. I believe Joe Kovacs is one of those. Bro, you need a whiteboard or something. I have one. It's over there, and I did not clean it off beforehand. So you are actually right. I should be doing that right now. I should have cleaned that off, and I could have shown you those cone drills a little bit more effectively. Could you make a video on how to prepare for a wrestling match? That would be something that we would put. That's from Gotcha Racing and Wrestling. That would be something that we would put on Peak Strength preparation. I could think about that. Keith Canegard, for sports that are done barefoot, like gymnastics, combat sports, is it better to do plyo exercises barefoot? I don't necessarily think you have to. I don't 100% believe that, but I believe at least half of the session you should be doing it barefoot. I think you should be doing most of your warm-up. Maybe the most complex ones you could be doing barefoot. The other ones you could have shoes on. It's still going to transfer well. It's still going to light up your nervous system. I don't think it's an absolute imperative aspect, but it does have pretty good transfer. If you go Snake Boy, if you just type in, YouTube Garage Strength Ultimate Guide to Wrestling, there's 20 wrestling videos that we have on there, but the most recent one came out about a month ago, and it's absolutely phenomenal. It's probably the most in-depth work I've done on YouTube on specific based wrestling training, and I used the South Dakota State wrestling team, who I'm their strength coach. I used that as the guide for the entire video, basically. So Muhammad, his goal is to lose weight, and he loves the carnivore diet. He does believe it's optimal for humans, except we need carbs for explosive performance. So what I would say there is, take if you have the carnivore diet, why don't you get 80% of your diet from the carnivore diet and 20% of your diet or your calories are from carbs, and then time all the carbs around your training and see how you feel. Do that for 2 to 3 weeks. See how you feel. There we go, Snake Boy. There's that wrestling video. I love fruit. I had bananas. I had mangoes today. Yeah, I love it. Any other questions here? It's 4:02. I got to get ready for weightlifting, but I want to take a couple more questions. The big factor here is that we've got the t-shirt giveaway, Siege 3940. You won the first one, so make sure you email support@garagestrength.com and provide a screenshot of your YouTube studio. John A. Miles 18 from the full video. You won that t-shirt giveaway. Remember, guys, you've got to show up for the live to know that you're gonna earn that free t-shirt giveaway. Strength of Warriors just asked how much fat can you lose in 1 month? 3 to 4 pounds, maybe. Probably 3 pounds. That might be a little aggressive, though. I mean, people will lose like 8 to 10 pounds in a month pretty easily, but it's not all fat. And then, guys, remember next week or each time that we do a live, I want to answer your questions with evidence, with that peer-reviewed journals, and go over all those things. Should your workout split change if you're in season? Yes, I think you should decrease by about 50 to 60% in season. Is it how to get shredded for wrestling? Snake Boy, if you look up above, Garage Strength commented with that recent wrestling video. Ingo Arthur, how often should an athlete train calves for speed? Once a week, but I don't think you really have to train just calves. I think you can do that reflexively. Snake Boy, it's the most recent link in the chat. Thank you, Solidarity. How do I get my veins to pop? Adobe Duke, I think this comes back to a couple big factors. For me personally, when I got a lot leaner, my veins pop. When I have some salt or if I'm a little dehydrated, I feel like they pop a little bit more. That's just for me. How to incorporate sprints into strength training? I lift 3 days a week. Using the novice progression. First, I would use Peak Strength. Second thing I would do would be a lower body day, but you can do sprints maybe in the morning or sprints on, let's say, day 1. Day 2 could be a lower body lift. Day 3 could be upper body lift. Day 4 could be sprints. Day 5 could be an athlete day with some sprints. Snake Boy. Okay, yep, thanks. Let me know, Snake Boy. Let us know what you think about the video and what other questions you might have so that we can help you and your coach. Best squat plateau breakers, pin squats, more front squats. More front squats will always help, and zombie squats. How do I lose 10% body fat if I'm 21% while gaining muscle? Yeah, also Solidarity to near failure for sure. How can I get my bench from 185 to 225? Gotcha. Racing and wrestling. You've got to do those 50 clap push-ups every single night for 3 straight weeks or 3 straight months. If you watch a recent video that is on my Ghostface Instagram, one of our guys here on site went from 205 to 275 by doing that protocol. How many workouts should a soccer player do in the gym off season? 3 to 4 lifts a week, but make sure they're specific to, 2 of those are specific to speed and durability and plyometrics. But remember, to that one article that we plugged earlier, we also saw an increase in 10 to 20 meter sprints and 30 to 50 meter sprints just by increasing the full range of motion back squats. Don't forget that, soccer players. How do you lose 10% body fat if you're 21% while gaining muscle? You've got to dial in your nutrition. It's going to take you about 6 to 7 months to get to that point. That's basically, I would recommend, it's going to take you about 6 to 7 months to get to that point, but you really got to focus on that. Is it scary fish? I don't know how good you are as a sprinter right now. I don't know what country you represent. I don't know your numbers. No, not clap push-ups for squats. The squats are good for soccer speed. Clap push-ups are good for bench pressing. Clap push-ups are phenomenal for bench pressing. Best squat plateau breakers are pin squats, front squats, and zombie squats. Sorry, James. I don't know if I was a little unclear there. Let's see. One more question, and I'm going to bounce. Hope you guys had fun today. I'm heading to Cuba in, 10 days, I think. Muhammad, I can't answer that. You got to ask your doctor that. Do calf raises have any calorie? I don't think so, Lux. I really don't. Maybe a little bit. By the way, is hand clean better than power clean for acceleration phase? I think it's really depending upon where somebody's weak. If somebody has a weak posterior chain, I would use hand cleans. If somebody's more, if somebody's more quad dominant, I would use hand cleans. If somebody's, their pull is good, but they struggle off the floor, I would use more power cleans. Tyler, how have you become so knowledgeable when in many different sports when it comes to strength and conditioning? I think the biggest thing is I try to stay up to date on the research that's going on out there. I've got a lot of connections across the field. I talk to a lot of different strength coaches on what they're doing. I have a pretty decent knack at seeing the way people move and seeing the way people break things down in their specific sports. I also really enjoy watching a lot of different sports, and I like to see the speed and things along those lines. And we've just had a lot of athletes come through the door here at Garage Strength. We spent, the last, 14 years, 15 years of developing athletes. So we've seen everybody come through the door, and we've learned what their programming's needs are. We've learned how they move, how they're explosive, how they jump, and what their energy systems are. And I think that's paid a pretty big, pretty big dividends with everything. Yes, solidarity. I'm hungry for knowledge and I cultivate my mind power. That's exactly right. If you guys need help with your training, head over to peakstrength.app, the Google Play Store or the Apple iOS Store. Download Peak Strength for 7 free days of training. During those 7 free days, you can cancel at any time. Don't forget, the worst thing that's going to happen, you're going to get 5 free workouts. But at some point, you have to begin your journey to attain peak strength. Also, comment on every long form video so that you can win one of our sweet Swole shirts. And if you don't want to worry about winning it, head over to the Garage Strength store and you can pick up one of our Swole shirts, our Swole shirt today. Till next time, peace.